right. Hello, everybody. My name is Ray Burns. You guys call me Ray. I'm 35 years old. And what am I talking about? I have four major things I'm going to be talking about today. My first one is my Teachers Pay Teachers business. And just a show of hands, who's heard of Teachers Pay Teachers? Okay, good. So most of us. And it's I think, are you guys all teachers that raise your hands? Kind of, sort of. Okay. Anyway, it's like I sell digital lesson plans. I used to be a high school physics teacher, so I sell pretty much what I used to teach. I just put that onto this site called teacherspayteachers.com, and I sell what I used to teach onto a platform where they could download it for money. And right now, I'm making about double than I used to be making as a full-time teacher, working about 15 hours a week, probably a little less than that. So that's the primary thing I'm going to be talking about today. The second thing I'm going to talk about is my real estate journey. I own a 3-family property and just kind of the hardships and the good things that I went through with all of that. The third thing is a bit touching on stocks, touching on retirement accounts and investments, and lessons I've learned up until this point about finances. Okay, so a bit about me. This is my family. So this is my wife here. She is currently a nurse. This is my son, Leo. He is 3. And as of 2 weeks ago, we had our second son, my second son, whose name is Sky. So family of 4. And my wife is now with trying to make sure everyone's falling asleep and everything. All right. So this is the family I grew up in. It's like a pretty bad picture. But I don't know if we have any other pictures of us, like seriously. Like I think this is our only family picture that we have. And it's like done at like 5 in the morning and it's like dark out and everything. But these are my parents. My mom is Japanese. This is me. I'm the oldest, and my brother, Sonny, who's right there, and my 2 sisters. And a bit of, I feel like this picture kind of tells a lot. We didn't have much growing up. We were pretty poor. And a story I like to tell about how poor we were was like when I was around like 5 years old, I remember walking to CVS with my dad, and we were going to buy milk. And I remember, I think I was like, as we were about to buy milk, I was looking at the candy aisle, at the aisle. And then I think I was staring at it, and my dad's like, "Oh, do you want one?" And I was like, immediately, I was like, no. Because in my head, I thought like, oh, if I buy that candy, maybe we won't have enough to like pay rent or something like in the future. Like, that's kind of like my mentality. I don't know how true it was, but that's how I felt. And like, I think at the lowest point, my parents told me like they had like $29 for groceries for the month. I think that was like the lowest point, but anyway, not that, did not have much money. I think almost all of my life up until high school, my parents never bought a car for like over $1,000. Like, you know, we've rolled up in $100 cars all the time and stuff like that. So that's kind of my lifestyle, our lifestyle, pretty poor, but at the same time, very frugal. Like I'm the oldest son, I'm the oldest child, but I don't think I ever had new clothes. Like our clothes always were like hand-me-downs from like friends or neighbors. And like, you know, we rolled up in like $100 cars and stuff like that. So like very low class kind of lifestyle. So that's kind of a bit about my upbringing. My mentality spending money when I was younger. So by the time I graduated high school, I think I've done like 7 jobs. And when I was pumping gas as like a senior in high school, I remember they had like the $5 footlong. And I remember thinking about it, and I was like, man, if I was to buy one of these, this would be like an hour of me working, because I was like making around like 6 something an hour. And I was thinking like, is this foot-long sandwich worth 1 hour of me working? And I was just like, no way. I would never work an hour to buy a sandwich. And that's kind of a lot of my mentality of like growing up of like, okay, that camera is $200. Is that worth me working for like, I don't know, how many, 40 hours or something like that? And like almost all the time the answer was like, no, nothing is like worth it. So very frugal, also very money conscious growing up. And I guess like when I think about my thoughts on fire, like, I feel like a lot of times like people have like these big graphs and these like Excel documents and these pie charts and talking about like don't buy Starbucks and stuff like that. Like I personally don't feel like I'm like that, whether it's because I've always been extremely money conscious. Like I don't really make all these kind of graphs or these Excel documents. I just like, maybe every 6 months I'll do like a little bit of check of where my finances are, what I'm spending on, but I pretty much don't like to look at it that much. And I guess I say that because I feel like a lot of times there's all these Excel documents and these algorithms going on, and I don't feel like it has to be that way. Okay, so moving on, why? So where my fire journey began. So this is me. I was a high school physics teacher. And I really loved being a high school physics teacher, but I always had this dream since I was like 18 to start my own school. I really wanted to do alternative education because I didn't really like public school. So I had this dream of starting my own school, but I always knew if I were to start my own school, it pretty much wouldn't be, most likely it wouldn't bring up so much money. It's not really something you do for money, and I always thought that I would need to do passive income. So ever since I was really young, I was really interested in passive income. Like, how can I make money without really doing anything? So this was kind of like always in the back of my head since I was around like 17 years old of like how to make passive income. And that way, I'll be able to start my own school and not have to worry so much about money because I'll be making money through the passive income. So that's kind of like where my why came from, was from this hope of starting my own school. And so my first year being a teacher, I was making around $50,000 a year. My rent was $500 a month. I was living with my parents. My wife and I were living with my parents, so we were giving them $500 a month. And I was helping my wife get through college. So she was a psych major, but she wanted to go back into school to get her nursing degree. So I was helping my wife get through college. And I bought a $4,000 car, which I don't know what you guys think about, but for me, that was just like so much money, pretty crazy. But I was just tired of rolling up in $100 cars, so I wanted to buy something a little nicer. I invested around $2,500 into my Roth IRA that year, and I was able to save around $10,000, which is like, after taxes, it's like a little less than $40,000, I would say. So it's around 25% of my income. And also, like a good amount of my money went on vacation. And I remember that year, I think that was like 2017 or something like that, 2016. We were in Europe for 5 weeks. So we went to Iceland for 1 week, then we went to 7 countries in Europe for another 4 weeks, and we did it all with $5,000 total. So like plane tickets, food, lodging, and everything like that, it was just like $5,000 for 5 weeks. And like what we did was like, we bought a bunch of food at Costco, and then we just packed it along with us. So we were eating Costco mostly throughout the 5 weeks, like 30 pounds of Costco food. And what we also did was, so this is a bit of like Iceland. We were biking across the country. This is before the kids, yep. So we were backpacking, and this is where we lugged our Costco food. And we were biking all along, and also we were sleeping in campgrounds and things like that. And we were just like seeing cool things. But I guess I show this because a lot of times I feel like when people are thinking of like living frugally or not living with things means you can't do things. But I feel like there's a lot that you can still do. You just have to be a lot more creative with it or really take your time in order to figure those things out. So like nowadays I spend $5,000 for like a week-long vacation, but it's like different nowadays. So my Teachers Pay Teachers journey. So my first year of teaching, someone told me about Teachers Pay Teachers, and I didn't really do anything about that. I was like a new teacher. But after my second year teaching, I was like, okay, I'm making all this physics content already for high school physics. I should just kind of put this online since I'm making it already and see what happens to it. And I always had this goal of like, I need passive income and stuff like that. So I'm like, maybe this is the way I can do it. So I kind of went on the site, and one of the stores, this was a chemistry teacher. So this is a chemistry teacher. Her name was Mrs. Raz. I kind of like looked at her site, And I wanted to find somebody that was like close in the niche that I was in. So I was like high school physics, so she's like chemistry teacher. So I was like, I kind of stalked her, looked at her Facebook, and I was like, hey, I have like questions. Can we do like a Zoom call for like 15 minutes? And can you help me out? So we got on a Zoom call together. She was like very, I felt like I was very lucky that she wanted to help me out and everything like that. And after 15 minutes, I felt like a jump start. I'm like, okay, I think I can do this. And so I started that year, and this was my first sale. My wife made this thing. July 17th, 2018, that was my first sale. And like to me, it was like, I was like blown away. I was like, what? Someone bought something I made? Why would they buy that? And I was just like so ecstatic. Like it was, this was the product here. It was like physics icebreaker. I sold it for like $5 on July 17, 2018. And I spent a little over 10 hours working on it. And I remember I told my friend, I was like, dude, I just made this thing and I sold it. And then I was like, yeah, I spent like 10 hours on it. And then he was laughing at me. He's like, you spent 10 hours? Dude, you made like 50 cents an hour. And I was like, yeah, but you know, I'll sell more. And he was kind of laughing at me. But I still have this same product on my Teachers Pay Teachers site that I made. This is my first product that I ever made. And I still have it. And at that point, I only sold one. But now, I just did this recently. I've sold, so from I don't know, whatever, 2018 to now, I've sold $4,000. So it was 50 cents an hour at that point, but now,
Still a $5 product?
it's still, no, it's a $7 product now. But now I've almost made $400 an hour on that same product. So it's just like perspective, and I'm sure, I'm hoping several years from now, that's an $800 an hour product, okay? So just a little bit of like perspective of that. And you know, it's great. It's a digital resource, so all they do is download it to buy it. And yeah, things take time to earn money. So my first month working on TPT, this was my first month, I made $360. This is from July 1st to August 31st. What I didn't, I was ecstatic about that. I was so happy. I was like, what? People are buying this stuff? Like, okay. And one thing I realized was like August is like one of the best times to sell. So it was like, okay. But my first year, I'm gonna say first year and a half, just to make things simple. So the year, yeah, because teachers are going back to school, so they're all like scrambling to buy stuff. Like, oh God, and they're getting new positions and stuff. So my first like year and a half, I made around $4,500. And my approach was pretty much like work 10 hours every week. I would like every hour, like my school was from like 7:30 to 2:30. So I would stay in school for an extra hour every day and just work on my business. And then, so I would do like an hour every day after school. And then I would usually do like 2 or 3 hours, 2 to 4 hours, I would say, on weekends. So that's kind of like my plan. I just did that the whole year, like 10 hours a week. And then this is kind of what I made. And I calculated at one point, it was about like $5 an hour or something like that, but it was around like what that was. And then my next year, so this was for 2020, I made $37,000. So a pretty big increase right there. So I made $37,000. And I'll kind of go more into how much I made later on, but a few tips with why I like Teachers Pay Teachers and maybe platforms like this is like there's like no shipping because it's all digital products. You're just downloading something. The second thing is there's no advertising because the platform itself advertises for you. So that's great. Like I do have like Facebook and Instagram and an email list, but it's very much secondary to the advertising that like Teachers Pay Teachers does, which is kind of like unheard of. I don't want to say Teachers Pay Teachers, but when you're on a platform, it does a lot of advertising for you. And the third thing, and I think the best thing, is there's this zero entry fee. It's like the only thing it's going to cost you is your time. And especially, you know, when you're young and there's not much going on, your time isn't worth that much. Maybe it's worth 50 cents an hour, you know? So there is no entry fee. You don't have to buy a big office or a big anything. It's just your time that you really need to put into it, okay? So that's that. And I guess like other things like this are like clip art, or like if you're selling like calendars, but there's a lot of different things where like digital products, it doesn't have to be like Teachers Pay Teachers, are similar in this kind of style. Okay. So my year of 2020, I'll go more into how much I made other years, but year of 2020, suddenly we were going from like a 1 income to an almost 3 income family. So because my Teachers Pay Teachers started increasing and my wife now works as a nurse, like we got a lot more income. But our lifestyle didn't really change. We had a baby, Leo. Our living expenses are the same. We paid a bit more for rent because now my parents are also helping out look after Leo. And I started maximizing my Roth IRAs and 401ks, investing around like $50,000 a year. And I actually bought a car. I kind of downgraded, and I bought a car for $1,500, a Toyota Camry. It was just like too good of a deal that I just like couldn't not buy it. So I downgraded. But yeah, it's just interesting. Like we're kind of like tripling my money from a few years ago, but I've kind of got a lesser car. And actually, I also this year I decided to take a pay cut with my teaching job. I was kind of making around $70,000 a year at that point as a high school teacher, and I took a pay cut for $35,000 a year to work at this private school where the owner taught me like was going to help me start my own school. So I kind of did that, and I figured like, okay, the purpose of me doing Teachers Pay Teachers and passive income was to always do this dream. So now that that's making money, I think I should take steps to do that. And then the last thing was, now that we had this like accumulation of wealth, I started thinking like, okay, where else can I put this money for it to work for us? And I started to look into real estate. So 2020 is when I started to look into real estate more seriously. This was the first main property that we looked at. So my wife and I, we went to my brother, because my brother, he has like 12 units of property. 12 units, is that what it is? 12 units. So we were like, okay, you did this thing, maybe we should do this thing. So help us out with like, oh, can you help us out? And my wife was really excited about that. So I was like, okay, maybe we should do this. So this is the first property we looked at. This was a 3-family, and it was going for $650,000. And at that point, we didn't have like that much money, so we were getting an FHA at 10%. And you know, it was supposed to be like closed in like 1 month, but it was taking more and more months. It was taking like 3 months. And then there's like more and more things we had to do. The FHA people were like, look, there's no railing over here. You're going to have to install a railing, and there's something over here you have to install before we can approve this on our mortgage, in order to approve this by the bank. So we told the owner, and the owner's like, look, man, we've been in this so long. If they're asking for that, you're going to have to come in and install that. We're not doing it. So like we put in like around $1,500 like building onto the property. And then you know, it's like 4 months have gone by. Everyone's just like fed up with each other. And then on the day we're supposed to close, the banker calls us and is like, hey, it's off. It's not happening. Sorry. And everyone's just like mad and angry at each other. And we lost around like $3,000 total for like inspections, all this kind of stuff. And you know, we're kind of like pretty mad. But yeah, but then I was like, you know, sour for like a few weeks. But then afterwards, I kept going. What I was doing was I was looking at the market, like the properties, every day for like 10 to 20 minutes a day. That was my thing. Like every day, like 10 a.m., I'd look at it for 10 to 20 minutes, make some phone calls and things like that, and then look at houses from that day. So every day I was just kind of grinding, looking at 10 to 20 minutes. And I had a similar experience. We found another 3-family property. I didn't get a picture of it. But similar thing happened. Some conflict happened, and then ended up putting in like $2,000 into it, and then it just not happening. So that was aggravating. And then a year and a half from where we first started, we finally got our property. This is a 3-unit property, so there are 3 units on one property. So this is the main one, and there's one in the back over here and one to the right over here. And we bought this one for around $500,000, and pretty happy with it. We also, about a year ago, we did some renovations to the property. And I guess like what's interesting is like, I don't know anything about real estate. I don't know anything about what to do. I don't know anything about like renovating. Like I like barely know how to like use a drill, but like, you know, I started to learn how to use a drill. I bought a drill, I bought a hammer, and we renovated this one unit after one of the tenants left. And we figured it out ourselves, and we spent around like $5,000 on it. And now, after we renovated it, we went from renting it out. This one unit, it's just a one bedroom, from $800 a month to $1,450 a month, so about double. And I think that's just like a lot of the power. Like, we could have hired it out, but it would have just cost like probably 5 times more money to renovate things. So anyway, we renovated ourselves, figured it out. So we bought the 3-family for $500,000. The units are 4-bedroom, 2-bath. Another unit is 1 bedroom, 1 bath in a garage, and the last one is 1 bedroom, 1 bath. And the mortgage is around $2,800 a month. At the beginning, when we first bought it, the rent that we were accumulating was $3,400, so netting around $600 a month before expenses. But now, after the renovation and a few increases into the rent, we're now renting for a total of $4,900 and netting $2,100 a month before expenses. Okay. So anyway, there was that struggle of trying to find the property, which we find it and we feel good about. But there was also some other struggles. One was like being a landlord, and like when I grew up, we always rented, and we were always getting like kicked out of houses and kicked out of properties and stuff like that. So like being on the other side, it just felt like really weird being a landlord and having that kind of feeling, because the landlord was always like the enemy, like when we were younger. So those are like some mental, psychological struggles I had. And there's like recently we had like tenants lying, and what happened was like there was one tenant, and he had a friend that was a plumber, and at the beginning he was doing jobs for us, which we were really happy about, and doing them quite cheap. But then it was getting more and more expensive. And this recent one, a few months ago, he had this pipe thing, and he's like, the plumber was like, it's going to cost like $2,000. I'm like, oh God, like it's always getting more and more expensive. What's going on? So I decided to like ask someone else to come and look at it, and he was like, yeah, I could do it for $500. And then I was just like, but it's like, I don't know, things like that you have to confront, that I feel like people don't really talk about. And like, I don't know, I don't really like being a landlord, so like being on call, like just them calling you at different times of the day and like complaining about bugs or stuff like that, it's just like, I don't know, aggravating some kind of way. And I guess I like mention these things because like so many times it's just like, just buy a real estate property, collect, you just have to drive and get your check and stuff like that. But yeah, it is. I mean, like it's like relatively passive, but like there's a lot more to it, I think, than you might first realize. But I think still very much worth it. Okay, so I'm going to go back to my Teachers Pay Teachers. Recap is at 2018, 2019 when I started, a year and a half, $4,500. The next year, 2020, I made around $37,000. 2021, I made around $80,000. Okay, so a bit of a jump from $37,000, almost a little bit over double. So this was 2021. And at this point, I'm kind of like hitting a bit of a pause. Like I've been working like 10 hours a week on my business for 2.5 years, but now I'm working maybe like 5 hours a week on my business, like not doing that much. And then 2022, I make around $102,000. And at this point, I'm like barely working. Like maybe I work like 50 hours the whole year. So I'm barely working at this point. And even though it did go up, I also can start to see that there is a bit of a decline going on because of competition and I think algorithms and different things like that. And then this past year, 2023, that we just did, I hit $168,000. But this year I took it a lot more seriously than the last year. So I started working probably on average around 12 hours a week. So I took it more seriously, and then it increased quite a bit. And so for Teachers Pay Teachers, I quit my job in July of 2023. That's what I did. And then I kind of currently not pursuing my dream of opening my school. So originally I mentioned that like I wanted this passive income so I could kind of pursue my own dream of opening my own school. But after I had a child, after I had Leo, I kind of like really started to fall in love with being a family person and like being a dad. And I don't know, I might still want to pursue my dream of opening my school, but I kind of put that on like a big pause. And I've just really been enjoying just being in like my child's life a lot more. And like an example of that is like during Halloween, they had like this parade at 1 p.m. And I was able to go to that parade for my son, and it was really cool. And like, especially when I was younger, like my dad was working like like 70 hours a week, like making like pennies and stuff like that. So it's just like nice, just having like the freedom to do stuff like that. And for now, I'm like kind of taking the time to do that. And yeah, enjoying spending lots of time with family and being more present emotionally, and enjoying lots of free time to myself and just thinking about life. So last things here, lesson I've learned through my financial journey. First, it may sound kind of weird, but I'm going to try to explain it. Many people that become rich get lucky, maybe just a little controversial, but you can't get lucky unless you play the game. So what I mean by this is I think of like when you're trying to get wealthy or rich, I think of it kind of like playing the lottery. Is like you need to get lucky. And the only way you're going to get rich is if you buy lottery tickets. And by buying lottery tickets, what I mean by that is you have to try things. For example, you have to try buying a property, or you have to try this idea that you have in your brain, or you have to try this invention that you're thinking about, or you have to try this thing that your friend told you about. And those are your lottery tickets. And most of the time, those lottery tickets that you are buying or that you're trying out are not going to work. But every once in a while, they do work, and then that's how you get rich. So that's kind of a lot of how I think about it is like expect to fail, but know that if you keep trying, there's going to be a jackpot, and that jackpot is going to be worth all of those failures so much more. So that's kind of like how my mentality has changed over the years. Next thing is there's no such thing as true passive income. So like I've always like loved this idea of like passive income, but I don't think there's any true passive income. Even with my job right now, like I'm working 10 to 15 hours a week, which is great, but I don't really think I'll ever be able to, if it's going to be doing well, I don't think I'll ever really be able to work less than 5 hours a week. And real estate, kind of like we talked about, is pretty, I don't know, you have to be on call, or even if you have a property manager, I feel like there's always still things that are going on. And I think this is like a big one with like frugality and also maybe making money, but being okay with failure and learning new things will save you lots of money and maybe make you lots of money, and it's fun. So what I think about this is like, I didn't know anything about real estate, and then I still remember like calling the first real estate agent and asking him about things. Like I was so nervous and awkward, and I didn't know what I was talking about. But it's just like you need to be okay with that. You need to be okay with not knowing what you're doing. And like I barely knew how to do a drill, but I figured out how to kind of renovate this apartment. And there's so many things, like I tried to buy that first 3-family and then lost $3,000 and then lost $2,000. But it's just like you have to be like comfortable with failing, and you have to and doing that, I feel like you learn a lot of things, and I kind of feel like that's kind of like the point of life, is like learning new skills and stuff, which is lots of fun and things like that. And I also feel like being too frugal is just another extreme. So when I think about this, I think about I remember like one of my good friends was getting married in Seattle. And I was thinking like, and I think it was like $300 for like a plane ticket, and then I had to get lodging and stuff like that. And I was just like, oh, that's just like so much money. Like spending all that money at this point is just like not worth it. And I kind of like look back at that moment, and I just feel like, oh wow, like I wasted such a precious memory, or I wasted such a precious moment. And I felt like in the past I used to be so frugal all the time and things like that, and just kind of realized like, oh, that's just like another extreme, and I kind of just like been wanting to like balance things out more. And then, yeah, this is an interesting one. So like I kind of like did the hourly rate of how much I've been making on my business, and it's around like $200 to $300 an hour. And for me, it's like just because you make a lot of money doesn't mean things are not worth doing. So what I mean by this is like, sometimes I might think like, oh, I make all this money, like why am I like cleaning the house? I could just hire someone to clean the house. Or like, oh, the cabinet's broken. Like I could just hire somebody $100 an hour to like fix the cabinet, and I'll just work and I'll make more money. But like I've kind of realized there are certain things that give you a lot of fulfillment, like fixing your own cabinet like gives you a sense of like pride and ownership. Like maybe doing the lawn makes you feel better, or even like doing the dishes, like you're taking care of things that you love. So like even if you're making a lot of money, there are many things, even if it's not financially the best decision, I don't know, makes you feel better about life. I think it does like go too far, and this is like a recent story. Like I recently moved, and we needed cardboard boxes. So what I started to do was I drove to all these like ShopRites and stuff to get all these cardboard boxes, and I'm like spending hours and hours trying to get these greasy cardboard boxes from like garbage cans and stuff like that. And I'm like, what am I doing? Like I make like $250 an hour, and I'm like driving around ShopRite getting greasy cardboard boxes. And so yeah, that was like this was like an interesting moment. And the last thing is I feel like winners can't be desperate. And I think this is a big one, is that, like, for example, that we wanted to get that rental property, but I spent like a year and a half looking 10 minutes every single day. And I feel like with many things, nowadays people want things like right here and now, like, oh, my car broke down, I need a new car. Or it's like, oh, it's snowing now, let me go buy some skis. But like if you're always like, reacting like I want this, so I'm gonna buy it now, then you're always gonna be paying like the premium, the most amount. But if you're able to like, oh, I want this, and I'm just gonna be looking for a deal, it could be years, it could be months, it could be weeks, but if you're willing to give that time, you're always kind of you can find those kind of deals. And even like right now with real estate, I don't really feel like it looks the best, but if you're not desperate, I feel like those deals are always kind of there and kind of stuff like that. So those are one of the big things I learned, is like, if you want to be getting the best deals, like you have to be willing to wait for those, you have to be patient for the right opportunities to come. And that's pretty much it. Any questions? Yeah.
So when you say you're working on specifically teachers, like the 10, 15 hours a week,
Mm-hmm.
are you creating new products? Are you maintaining old ones? Are you doing customer service?
Yeah, I do a few things. I probably spend about 1 hour, no, not probably like 2 hours a month on customer service.
What's an issue with customer service?
Just a lot of like Q&A. Like people will be like, oh, this product, like how do you do this? Or like, oh, what's going on with this? So like that's a thing, yeah, that I'll do maybe 2 hours a month. And I try to split like 50% of the time of optimizing old products, making like things like thumbnails look better from like my old products, or making certain products more updated. And I spend like around another 50% of the time making new products. So, yeah. Mm-hmm.
How many products do you have? What sort of products,
Mm-hmm.
like what do the different products look like? And I know last time you said the bundles you found really successful. So
Mm-hmm.
anything else that you?
Yeah, so I think I have a total of, is there?
Connect you to Wi-Fi and then you can put on teachers.
Sure, yeah, if you want to do that. So yeah, I have a total of pretty much around 100 products, I think slightly more. And if you look at most of the advice out there, they're like, you need at least 100 products and stuff like that. But the truth is, like, I was making good money with just like 70 products. But most of the big sellers are like full year curriculum. That's where I make 80% of my money, is like, this is a full year content of high school physics, or this is a full year content of AP physics. So let's see. I guess I'll go to my store. Oops.
So that was another question. You said AP physics and also regular physics?
Yeah, I sell AP physics, regular physics, and I'm working on conceptual physics right now, so that's kind of like the new product that I'm working on.
How much is your most expensive product?
My most expensive product is $200. So, and it's like, luckily it's like one of my bigger sellers. So, yeah. So yeah, this is like the entire year bundle. This is the entire year bundle. And when that big jump that you saw with the 37,000, that's when I started to put those bundles up. Is like, because people were selling stuff like that.
And those bundles are just individual products that you already had, but now they're all together.
Yeah, so for example, this high school physics bundle has 15 products inside of it. So it's kind of like, I think it has 10 full unit lessons with like a PowerPoint, homework, quizzes, and tests, and stuff like that.
So
Yeah.
who buys this? If I'm a physics teacher.
Yeah.
And I taught physics last year.
Yeah.
Didn't I just use the same plan from last year? Why do I need to buy
Yeah.
yours?
So I target mine to mostly, I target it personally. I don't do too much targeting, but I target it mostly to new teachers. And I mean, like, it seems like weird, like how many new physics teachers there every year? That's what I thought first thought, but there has to be hundreds, like thousands maybe.